Hey guys, I have like this little itty bitty bit of time, and so I wanna get this in. So in this little bit of time, because it's a really important video that I wanting to do, and I had a little bit of itty bitty break, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll get to do this. So I'm squeezing it in, and I'm really excited to do it. So I found a video. I found a video on a topic that I've been wanting to do a video on, and I'm going to link it below, and I really need you guys to watch it. So it's basically a video on how not to get mugged. And I was like, I wonder if it's on the things that I was going to make a video about. And what I was going to do a video about, and maybe it's controversial, I don't know, but I was going to do a video about how not to be sexually how not to be sexually, I guess, harassed, how not to be grabbed sexually, like how not to be sexually assaulted on the street. Yeah, how not to be a sexual assault victim and sexually harassed, that kind of thing. How not to be assaulted, like how not to be a victim. And like how to lessen your chances. And that's a lot of, and that's not to at all go against, like, if you hear me out, like, don't make presuppositions or anything like that. Like, hear me out, because like I've had a ton of training in this area, actually. Like, I'm not coming from an uneducated perspective. I'm coming from a training perspective. Like, I've had a lot of education in this area, so a lot more than the people who they actually have speak on shows. And then I've also had a lot of experience. Like, I have been a victim. Like, I've been a victim, like, right across the spectrum. So, and I want to speak about that. I realized that and what happened is that when I started getting trained, I wasn't a victim anymore. So my cats, because I'm taping, so I'm not a victim anymore because of that. And I wasn't ever assaulted again when I started doing these steps. And then a lot of the things are the exact same tips for women that they are for men and women with the video below. And so I was like, I bet I have a chance to just do a video on both and share them with you, because I realized that there's just the culture has changed so much that there's so many things that were common sense that aren't common sense anymore. We have changed as a society. We used to be a society that taught our children from the day they were raised. We taught them that there was such a thing as the big bad wolf. We taught them that there was a big bad wolf out there and that they existed. And we taught them how to know a big bad wolf when we saw one, how to smell them, taste them, detect them, see the warning signs, see the red flags, and how to avoid them, and how to go around them, skip them, detect them, and get around them. That's not the way kids are raised today. Just a moment. Okay, sorry, I had to go. So I really am squeezing this in there. So I was saying that that parents don't do that anymore. And that's not necessarily the parents' fault. A lot of it is the culture's fault. Like, we've been watching these movies, right? We've been watching these movies with like Jack Ryan, where we just watch like Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger. And if you saw in there, like, there are definitely bad guys, even Air Force One. Those movies are very indicative of what we're being made. Even Indiana Jones, all those movies in those times before, they're very indicative. If you watch all these movies I've been showing you, even the Goonies, all these movies really before the year 2000 and before then, these movies were being made that really had there was a bad guy, and it was palpable. It was kind of like how good overcame the bad guy. And the reason they made those movies isn't because that's the traditional story. It's because that's how real life is. I mean, that's why we have the police. That's why we have government. Because over the last, since man became, people think like, oh, like governments this way or crimes, all these discussions we're now having about politics, people forget like the democracy and the government we now have. Like, it didn't just happen. It came after thousands of years of mankind figuring out that this is like the best way to come together and actually not kill each other. Like, not kill each other. It's the best way to be a democracy. That's why it's so important, why I'm tweeting so much about politics, because I do think that we're in a very interesting, right now politics is way more interesting than any drama on TV, that's for sure. So it's very interesting what's coming out, and I'm really enjoying Dick Morris's channel because it is just so he just puts, I feel like he's like the me of politics or something. He just says it. He just gives his knowledge unadulterated. He just gives his knowledge freely, and I really appreciate that about him. And he doesn't care what side he's going to piss off. He just wants to tell the way things are for us. And that's what reporters are supposed to do. That's what journalists are supposed to do. And if you pay attention to the last thing, well, I don't know why I tweeted last, but he mentions in his Mueller one, he mentions the Plume investigation, and that's actually the girl that I posted oh God, I'm getting off on things. Let me focus on this issue. So no rabbit trails today, I don't have time. So, anyway, let's get back to it. So the reason that it's not that it's just the classic story, it's that's how mankind has learned to become. Like, mankind has always been about fighting. There's always been like people who are going to hurt us and like who want to do harm and take power and hurt. And then there's always been another side. There has always been other men or women who, mankind who has pushed back, and sometimes it's been two bad sides. But then towards more recent history, like in the last, 500 years, 200, 300 years, there's a push for just freedom. Like, that's what came up, and that's a relatively new thing of like freedom, and then freedom of speech. That's a really relatively new concept, and that's why it's so important to protect it. It's a new concept to be free and be able to speak your mind and say what you think and have debates openly without hurting the other and saying you're not allowed to say that. That's not okay to say. And it's scary when we start doing that, because when we say you're not allowed to say that, then we are cutting off words for discussion. And anyway, so there is this good versus evil that we need to still have. And when we start eliminating that and start saying, there started being made these new movies and these new shows that started saying, well, bad guys aren't really bad guys. They have a story, and they're actually quite sympathetic, and they're actually, they have a lot we should feel sorry for them, or they're empathetic, and in a lot of ways we should worship them. And they start making t-shirts about them, and they start praising them. And instead of being people that we should watch out for, instead of raising generations and kids of saying, watch out for these guys, know who they are, they could take advantage of you, hurt you. And we started saying, like, get close to them, be like them, or here's how to hurt other people. But in line with that, society also started teaching, if you watch cartoons and everything like that, like I just shared with some parents that I know, I just shared a commercial, and it was showing like a little girl was sleeping, and in her mind, there was a big bad, she was freezing in the cold, and a big bad wolf came off her, and it was like, roar, and she was like, and then the wolf was like, da-da-da-da, and she was like, what? And it turned out to be a really nice wolf. And it was like, and the wolf helped her and took her all throughout the tundra. And I was like, oh my God. And the thing is, the first reaction that the parents had was, what's wrong with that commercial? And I was like, do you see, it's gotten so much into our culture that we even think the big bad wolf, it indoctrinates us to think that when we see, hear, and smell the big bad wolf, that they really never have a bad intent. There is no one out there who actually has the intent to hurt us. And that's why you see people out there, when I watch funny videos, I see these videos of people where it is clear that there are Uber people out there ripping off their patrons. It is very clear to me, because I was trained, like, I knew that there are big bad wolves out there, and I knew what they were like. And I was like, it's clear they're ripping you off. And instead of them saying, you're ripping us off, take us off, let me out here, just put me off on the curb right here, they're like, oh, they must not understand English very well. And they just kept ignoring the signs, because they went, and all of them, I see video after video of people, and they'll film it. They'll film the Uber being like, isn't this the dumbest Uber driver in the world. I see these videos all the time, dumbest Uber driver in the world. And I was like, that's the smartest Uber driver in the world. That Uber driver just got $50. This person is, because all the Uber drivers know that no one expects them to want to harm them, because parents and the culture have said, hey, no one wants to harm you. No one would ever try to con you. Like they say, here's how to con people, but they never warn you how to be conned, right? So here's what I want to say is that there are people out there who want to hurt you, and you just, and so, and parents don't want to say that. They don't want to they don't want to scare their kids. That's not scaring your kids. That's preparing your kids for the real world. Like if you watch Disney cartoons, if you watched it, like that was interesting. Disney cartoons were used all the way up there, huge cartoons. They were beloved. Disneyland was built on them. We still go to it. And then all of a sudden in the year 2000, people started questioning, being like, well, aren't they too scary for kids? And I was just like, are you kidding me? Because in Disney cartoons, they have bad characters, they have scary themes or whatever. But the thing is that kids inherently know, like kids are like, they have the best BS smellers of them all. Like kids can smell out. And so what they want to do is like they smell that something's bad, but when parents say, oh, it's not really bad, they start to dull their instinct. They go, oh, it's not really bad. And they start not trusting their instincts. And so what I want to encourage you to do is start trusting your instincts and start being aware of your surroundings again. The number one thing that I see in young people today, especially young people, is they're walking around and they're not aware of their surroundings. And you're going to listen to this tape down below. And there's a few things that I want to share with you. And I'm sharing with you because I really, really want you to be, I know I will prevent you from being assault. I know I will prevent assaults. I know I will prevent attacks. So, first of all, you have to be aware of your surroundings. And I mean, wherever you go, you've got to be aware of your surroundings. Case in point, if I go down to a subway station, at all times, like when I was on my own, I did a lot of travels on my own. Before I ever met my husband, I did a lot of travels on my own. I used to travel to all of my events, all of my conventions. I did all of that traveling on my own. But I was raised to know, like, be aware of your surroundings, because I always knew that someone would want to, from a young kid, I knew strangers would try to pick you up. They taught you how to be aware that a stranger might try to snatch you. You were taught from a young age that people might try to snatch you. Kids aren't taught that today. They aren't taught to like how to stay away from strangers because you might be snatched. They're like, they don't want kids to think the world is bad. And I'm like, well, the world has good people in it, but it also has bad people in it. And you have to be aware. It doesn't help anybody to teach them that it's not the way it is. It just makes them lambs to the slaughter, right? And so what I want to do is just start letting your instincts come to the surface. You already have them. Let them come to the surface. And so what happens is like, let's say I go down into a subway station. I am watching my full surroundings. I'm using my peripheral vision, but I look around. Like I am looking all around me at all times. Like I am looking full 360, right? If I go down to a subway platform, do you think I stand on my own? Do you think I am crazy enough to stand on my own? There is no way no, I am going to stand near where the crowd is, but I stand on the periphery of the crowd. I know that if I go into the middle of the crowd, I have a better chance of being pickpocketed. That is a perfect example because I can't see everyone directly around me. I also have a better chance of being grabbed, of being felt up. I have a better chance of someone moving up against me. So I always go right to the edge of a crowd because then I'm protected by the crowd. They can't pick me off. So I go right up to the edge of the crowd. So I'm next to a crowd. So that, because they'll take the people who are not. They'll take the people who are isolated, that are not paying attention on their phone. So if you are in the middle of a subway platform and you are on your phone and you're not paying attention, you are right there. You are asking for it. Because you have to think like a predator. If they're going to go down into a subway station and they look around that platform and they say, well, who is an easy target? They're going to think, okay, they're going to look at the person who's not paying attention, who's on their phone, looking down, not looking around themselves? Or are they going to pick the person that is standing up tall? Because that's one of the hints that I learned. Like, that's one of the tricks that I learned. If you stand up tall, if you have your head upright, like, you can go ahead and check your phone, but you have to be upright, you have to be tall, and then you have to take periodic checks. And you have to be somewhat near a group of people. I like to put myself up against, like if there's a group of people, I like to stand near pillars because that means no one can get to me from behind. And I know I can hear it in my head that you guys are like, aren't you being paranoid? Are you crazy? I'm telling you, after I employed these things, I didn't get touched after that. Before that, I have had my breasts grabbed. I have had them yanked. I have had people grab their put their hands up in places I don't want. I've had them put them hands on the knees, put them shoved up into my regions. I have had, and that is before it got to be a popular thing to do. The only reason that I never got mugged, the only reason that I got carried off, I had people who actually put their arm around me and started leading me off into buildings. Literally started leading me off into buildings. Just picked me up off the street and started patting my butt and just being like, let's go up here, let's go up there. And it was like rich guys, just, and you know why they did that? Because they knew that I just trusted everybody. They could see that I was just this, I just thought the world was great. I thought the world was great and I trusted everybody. It is a thing of, and I didn't have a strong wall of saying no. And here are the tricks. And I was listening to this guy in the link down below. And I was like, if I had followed some of the things he said, this thing like the boobs getting grabbed, one of the things he said, don't stop when they ask for the time. He's freaking right. That's how they got they stopped and they asked for the time. They were jogging by. I was walking up a street. They were jogging down. They said, what's the time? And I stopped and I said, oh, it's this. And he just reached right in and he grabbed. This has happened multiple times to me until I learned. Other things that I've learned is that you do not wear short shorts. You don't wear short shorts outside. You don't wear tank tops outside. You don't let me get you straight. Like I wore the cute outfits. I had a banging body. Like we are talking like I had a small rib cage. I have an incredible rack. Like I have a nice butt. Like I had the body. Like I had the body. And like, I finally figured out later years that like, you know, like men actually like that stuff. Back then, like, it was stick figures where like, I used to believe the things in the magazines that you had to be stick and rail thin. And I started to figure out later in life that like guys actually like the curves. And so I didn't get like, you know, you figure that out. The things that you hate most about yourself end up being the things that are the best about yourself. But anyway, I had this amazing body, right? So I would wear the outfits. Like, remember, I used to do dancing. So I would go salsa dancing. I would go salsa dancing in downtown LA. I would go into downtown LA. The dances started at 11 o'clock at night. So, and I would wear the boom, boom, like I would do the whole thing, you guys. And I was one of the best freaking dancers there. Do you think I went walking down that street wearing those clothes? Do you think I did that? Do you think I drove into the city that way? No, I had learned by that point. I had already been assaulted enough by that point, and I had learned my tricks and I had learned my techniques enough by that point. So what I would do is I would have a shoe bag and I would have the whole thing. And then what I did is I had a trench coat. I bought specifically, I went to like Ross Dress for Less. And I bought this gorgeous, like Liz Claiborne dress coat or something, like some Nordstrom, like some gorgeous dress coat with one of my first paychecks from teaching or whatever. And I bought this gorgeous trench coat with that black trench coat that went from top to bottom, head to toe. And I would go and I'd turn in that ticket and I would wrap myself up from it. And this is the reason why. You didn't just walk into it. You had to stand in a line for like an hour. So you were in the middle of downtown LA, not a good part of town, like not a good part of town. And the thing is that then no one would notice me for like that hour. I could walk in, I'd walk on down the street alone. But the thing is that a guy walking down the street, they wouldn't see anything I had to offer. I would be tall. I'd walk with keys in between my fingers, a key sticking out. Because at that time, they didn't have mace. Now the guy says to carry mace. He says mace is the number one thing. Always carry mace on your keychain, ladies. Always. Men carry mace on your keychain. As the guy says, ladies scream, so he picks off men even more. Like I'm telling you, and I was always aware of my surroundings. If there is somebody that doesn't look good, if there were other men that like just if they had anything, if there are other people on the other, if they were on my side of the street walking down, you cannot be nice. You walk to the other side of the street and you cross on that side of the street. When I started implementing these things, like it ended, and it ended fast. Do you think that hurt my self-esteem not to wear banging clothes on the street? No, because I didn't get grabbed again. What happened is that I stayed in that line. No one paid attention to me. I got to keep my head down. I went in, and then at coat check, I turned it in. I turned in my coat. I put on my shoes. Then I went out. I got kind of assaulted on the floor once, but then I learned it barely. Well, he took me on the floor, but only once at that place. He took me out on the floor, and while I'm dancing, I noticed that like he'd go in, start dancing, and he started like kissing me. Like he'd go in and he'd just start like kissing me. And I was just like, you know what I did, ladies? This is what I did. And I was just like, oh. And I was like, and I took him off the floor in the middle of the dance. I was like, ooh. And I was like, oh, let's go. And he thought he was going to get some. Like he really did. I took him right off the floor and I said, thank you very much. And I walked off and he was like, what? I ended it right there. I just made him think, you play the game, ladies. Play the game and get the F out. And I never danced with him again. And I learned real fast. And what I would do, ladies, is I went up into there's my meds. All right, so then I would go ahead and I would go up into the bleachers and I'd watch where the best dancers were. And I'd be like, oh, that's where the best dancers are if I was at a new club. And then I'd go into that corner and I would dance with the best dancers who were pros and would treat you best for the rest of the night. And then when it was all over, I would put back on that trench coat and no one would know who I was. And I never got touched in the most dangerous part. At that time, LA, the fact that I never got touched in LA, you guys have no idea what a big deal that was. And I would drive in from so far, you have no idea. And I wouldn't get touched. I remember in New York City, I remember my first time to New York City, I was visiting a friend of the family and she's like, I need to go into work. Why don't you tour the city all day? And I just went out there like little California girl that I was. And I wore jean shorts, not even short shorts. Like they didn't sell short shorts yet. Like well, maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't allowed to buy them. Yeah, I wasn't allowed to buy them. I don't remember. They were cutoffs or whatever, but they weren't even that short. But I was wearing shorts. And then I was wearing a tank top and it wasn't even a spaghetti strap. I wasn't allowed to wear spaghetti straps. I wore these like 1.5 inch thick tank tops or whatever. And I went out and I toured the city that way. And I got I don't know the technical word, but I got attacked or assaulted like 3 times. I got grabbed like 3 times. One guy tried to grab me off the street right in Times Square and I wasn't ready for it. And I got so scared. I was so petrified. Like I was so petrified. And thank God he warned me by patting my butt or whatever. Like, thank God. And I just was so petrified. And I was just like, I really want to go over there. I didn't know to call for the cops. I didn't know to blow a whistle. Like the guy says, blowing a whistle is really good. He was being so nice about everything. And looking back, I was like, he would just go down, pluck fit, because he was I had heard of it. It was the Rainbow Room or whatever. And I'd heard of it. And he was just like, oh my gosh, he saw me looking at a map. He's like, New York City? And he threw a great pitch. Oh my God, I was so stupid. I was like 18 at the time. And he was the first guy to pick me out. Then the next guy, I was sitting there, just sitting on a park bench. And he just came and sat next to me. And then he would sit a little bit closer, and then they try to pick up. Now, what would I do today? If I saw him even walking my direction, like I would have felt him, noticed him before he even got in my direction, I would have gotten up and walked away. I wouldn't have been like, oh, I'm not so sure about this guy, or I'm comfortable. And I would have been like, I felt like I would have been rude, and I didn't want to be rude. You have got to learn to be rude. If they sit down next to you, you get up and you leave. Don't be like, this is my spot, he has to go. You leave. Get out. These guys do not feel, today they're more brazen than ever, and they will grab you. Here are the things that they're looking for. They will avoid, if they look at somebody, they will avoid someone who stands up tall. They pick people who are shorter. They go after shorter people than they do taller people, so be aware of that. They go after people who are wearing less clothes than more clothes. Like if you watch a video, go ahead and watch videos. I was watching a video of some girls twerking online. There were 3 girls in the videos, and they were trading places, and they were twerking online. And I literally asked myself, and I said, now, if a guy was going to grab one of these girls, which one of them would they grab? Ask yourself. Ask yourself, if a guy goes into a party and he's like, which girls am I going to pick off to rape? Which one am I going to take up into the stairs to rape? Which one do you think are going to fight less? Which one? And that is not to say that we're asking of it in any way. It is a way to protect ourselves. If you go in and you're aware of it and you're scanning the room, if you go to a party, you have to be aware and looking for it. You have to come with a friend. You have to have a designated driver. And you have to have a friend that says, if I get taken to a room, these are the steps. You have to have a backup system. It's not your fault. It is absolutely his fault. It is absolutely a crime. But you have to be aware that, like, there are steps that you can do to protect yourself. Just like the police wear bulletproof vests in order to protect themselves from a gunshot. It's not their fault. It's the other guy shooting. To wear a bulletproof vest, they have to wear it. But they're doing it because they know it might happen. It's okay for us to go ahead and do that. The next day, what happened when I got home after being gotten by 3 guys, I came home crying that day from New York. And the family friend was on the phone to her younger daughter, who was then in LA. And she was like, you let her go into New York City. You let her do the city on her own in shorts and a tank top. And this was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. Like, and this wasn't even in the last decade. And she was like, you can't go around like that. You can't be showing your legs in New York City like that. Like, you don't do that. And I had no idea. And so the next day I wore something that it was a dress, but it was a dress that had a high neck and it went down to the ground. And I didn't get anything. I got like one guy that came close, and then I knew what was happening and I just walked away. But I got like 0. I didn't get anyone that put their hands on me. I didn't get any grabs. It was like night and day, you guys. Night and day. And when I went to Europe, the exact same thing happened. The exact same thing happened. And I should have applied the same exact rules that I did in Europe that I applied in the city. It's not any different. Like they were even more brazen in Europe. Oh my God, in Paris. In Paris, they think their body is yours unless you tell them otherwise. They just do. And so it's just one of those things where I really want you to pay attention to what's down below. Men are just as susceptible as women. There are things that you can do to protect yourself. It is not a bad thing to be like, okay, there are people who are out there who want to hurt me. And yes, I can be aware of it. All I'm asking you to do is when you go out there, keep your head up. When you're walking in a public space, if you are alone, never walk alone with your head down. If you are walking alone, always keep your head around. Do you know, even when my husband and I go out, this is something the older generation taught us, that this is something we learned from our dancing friends. When we walk on the sidewalk, the man walks on the side of the street to protect the woman. Well, they even taught us, like, if there are people that are walking in the street, that could be anything, like you walk in between them. And we learned that. We learned, like, you step in closer to the side of the stores. You don't step on even the side of the street. Like, I see that. Like, we still today, we don't teach our kids, don't walk on the edge of the sidewalk. Teach your kids to walk on the side of the stores. Like, there should be something in your head running at all times of like, what if, be aware of our surroundings. So I'm really asking you to expand your peripheral vision. And also, he says about the driveways, he says that's your most susceptible place. Yes, when you're getting in and out of your car, you are supposed to be checking. Check all the way around. My husband and I will sit in a car. Having someone with you is no guarantee. You sit and you wait it out. And don't stop. Like, people ask us for help all the time. We get approached all the time because they think we have money. We go into New York City for doctor's appointments or whatever. They ask us for money. And sometimes we've just learned to say, no, thank you. And we just keep walking because we know the risks. We donate to charities when we're able to. That's what we do. We give in other ways. Like there are other ways that we give and we donate with our time and our energy. That's what we do. So we just say no thank you. If they ask for the time, we just say no thank you, sorry. And that saved our lives. Like I'll have to tell you that story one day. Like it saved our lives back in a canyon. Some people try to trap us just by saying, oh, we lost our signal. Turned out there was a signal in a canyon, and there's a guy with a, is really scary, probably worst moment of my life. So, and that was really scary. And it's because I read The Gift of Fear that saved our lives. But the gift of fear is exactly what I'm talking about paying attention to your instincts and paying attention to the things around you, being alert and always watching and being protective of yourself. Don't be like, oh, I'm a victim because I have to dress differently. Like, no, you guys, that's being empowered. That's saying, I know who you are, and I'm 3 steps ahead of you. I am not next. So get your pepper spray, get your keys, get your coats. Look hot and sexy, mama, in the clubs. Go for it. Go on with your bad self. But don't do it on the streets. Don't do it in the subway. Don't put yourself in the line of fire. Watch the video below. Be aware and be prepared, because there are big bad wolves out there. I gotta go back to work. I love you guys. Please share, because I can't. I love you.